like scary movies?
Uh-huh. I'm getting ready to watch a video.
You making popcorn?
Uh-huh.
What's your favorite?
I don't know.
You have to have a favorite. Talk to me. Talk to me.
Hi, everybody. I'm George, and welcome to the best little horror house in Philly, the show where we talk about the best horror movie ever made, according to our guest, at least. And today is very special. Not only is it Plutember, but we're talking to the very last solo guest. Please welcome Blair Witch Project, Lost Boys, and now ex-picker, JP Novak. Welcome, buddy.
George, it is an honor. It is so fun to be here. I forgot. We did some bangers. I've got really good taste.
Yeah, we certainly did pick some good ones. Blair Witch Project, truly a game changer for me. Like, probably my favorite found footage movie. So,
still, I can't believe how well it stood up. You know, we're looking at 25 years later. It's still just
pretty remarkable.
It's scary. Scary movie, man.
Yeah, certainly is. Certainly is. Now, as with Reeg's last episode, we have covered your history with horror extensively in the previous episodes, and we have a lot to get to for this movie. So we're just going to get right into it. Although I have to say, this was a really hard movie to research. Obviously, the Twitter name change affects things.
Oh, boy, I didn't even think about that.
Another thing to hold Elon responsible for. But also, if you were to hypothetically Google, for example, casting X movie to try and learn more about the process, you will get a search results page full of porn.
You're going to get Maxine, but not the one you were looking for.
So, it was certainly a process of trying to get some notes down on this, but we made it. I do also want to preface this discussion with, I found it very funny that without any discussion, you and Reegs picked incredibly similar movies.
Oh, what did he pick?
So he picked The Visit, the M. Night Shyamalan movie.
Was that the grandmother and the kids?
That's exactly the one. And yeah, even on a base level, the themes around aging with dignity are in both. I mean, if I had saved the amusement park for this year, we would have had the trifecta. But even more loftily, The Visit and X both have an auteur director known for precise cinematography, imitating a tried and true subgenre while subverting it at the same time. And it's just such a specific subgenre that you both nailed in on that it made me laugh quite a bit.
That is very funny. I'm going to have to, I still haven't seen that, so I'm going to have to go watch The Visit after we record tonight.
Best horror movie ever made, I've heard.
That's what I hear.
So to speak on this subversion of a subgenre here, Ty West, the director of X, said in behind the scenes stuff that he'd looked around and, quote, felt the movies coming out were soft. That is to say that they didn't have the taboo nature that horror was once known for. Now, I already hear people pushing back on this a little bit, and I'll say, one, the New Extremity movement primarily impacted the films of Europe, while Ty was talking about North American output. And two, that while North American films are exploring extremity again with movies like the Terrifier series and In a Violent Nature, we had definitely shifted away from the torture porn extremities that haunted the 2000s, and even more so, as Brittany Snow alluded to in the same featurette, that it's more about X going for more than shock value while still having shock value.
It definitely delivers on the shock value. We will talk extensively about what else it's attempting to deliver on, but I'm been so grateful for that. I love the genre. I love going to the theater and seeing a scary movie is just so much fun. I haven't been myself particularly interested in pursuing that kind of extreme level of violence in some of the more popular franchises that have been going, but I think this movie was a real refreshing almost new entry, except it's and we'll get into this too, I'm sure, but it reminds me of Chinatown. Is it pastiche? Is it parody? Is it doing its own thing? I think it's there's so much going on in this movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that comes from Ty's intention at the beginning, just to, quote, do something highbrow with the ultimate in lowbrow exploitation. You know, it's say what you will about automatically aligning exploitation with lowbrow, but it's certainly a much more instinctual, animalistic reaction that they're hooking you with.
The whole movie, without saying it, it just shows that from the very beginning, from the blue collar desperation of their lives to just the graphic nature of even just the depiction of Pearl and
Mm-hmm.
how and her husband and it's wild. They they don't shy away from, it's Schrodinger, not Schrodinger's, the gun on the wall,
Echo.
Chekhov's gun. It's Chekhov's alligator. But not in
Certainly
the way you
is.
expect.
Yeah, it is funny that it is. Yeah, much like the whole movie, they play with the things that you expect, but then subvert them as well.
Excellently, and a couple of times making me jump, even on my second time watching it.
There you go. There was another quote from Ty where he said, in the 70s, adult filmmaking and horror filmmaking were not that different. They have kind of a symbiotic relationship. They were made outside of the system and they could go direct to consumers via drive ins or grindhouse theaters or adult theaters and eventually VHS. So I thought making a movie about people making an adult movie would satisfy what I was trying to get after, bringing an audience into the filmmaking process without being too meta and making it about a horror movie. And I do think that he threads the needle really well. You know, there are a few moments where he does like lean on the idea of it also being a horror movie. Like the very last line is like a real button about like drawing that connection. But in terms of letting you sort of get there on your own, I don't think that he beats you over the head with it. And then it's like a gleeful, like, we're in this together. We all got there together at the end button jumping off.
It's remarkable. I think a lot of what you will read about this movie is that he was drawing that exact comparison between avant-garde and like guerrilla filmmaking and this crew who's trying to film an adult movie. And
Mm-hmm.
they even reference this at one point, that like the cameraman is like trying to be an auteur and he's trying to bring art to something that will shock people. And I think that really mirrors what Ty West is going for, like right out of the gate.
Definitely both adult filmmaking, horror filmmaking, even outside of the box autorial, like avant-garde filmmaking is about opening up new pathways for people to bust into the business. It's a new generation combating the insularity of the previous, the gatekeepers of Hollywood who said, this isn't the way to make a movie. Well, now that there's consumer grade electronics that allow you to do whatever you want, suddenly there was no wrong way to make a movie.
It reminds me very much, not West's filmmaking style, but more what he's evoking in this movie. Reminds me a lot of, like, if you ever read the Bruce Campbell autobiography and he talks about making Evil Dead,
Mm-hmm.
or Rebel with the Camera, I think it's called, the Robert Rodriguez biography,
Right.
where it's like these people are doing it with no budget and they are making something profoundly interesting and new.
Yeah. It's got a really interesting dynamic because in addition to the horror adult filmmaking connection, it really has a lot to say about women's relationships, not only to aging in general, but especially in show business. There's the famous line from Joan Crawford: everything written for women seems to fall into just three categories: ingenues, mothers, or gorgons. And it was a stark contrast to the prestigious roles that aging stars like Jimmy Stewart got. And this commentary on the pressures that women faced thanks to the sexist infrastructure led to quote unquote hagsploitation and some iconic reclamations of aging stardom, starting with your Sunset Boulevards and Whatever Happened to Baby Jane's, and leading all the way to things like Serial Mom and The Visit.
Oh man, Serial Mom.
Such a fascinating subgenre. Things like Serial Mom, things like even David Lynch's Wild at Heart plays with this idea of hagsploitation. And like, it's just so fascinating to me because it is such a humanistic subgenre. I feel like it is so based on emotion and being pushed too far. Like, it's such a human thing. And very, very often they do explore like what drove them to this point, like how did they wind up here? And certainly it is exploitation. It is an exploitation subgenre. People are signing up to see an older, aging Hollywood star who is now trying to make the most of this. But I do think that there is sort of, reclaiming that identity and being like, I am still a star no matter how old I am. You know, Jimmy Stewart isn't the only one who can do it. Boris Karloff getting Frankenstein that late in life, like, you know, he's not the only one who can become a horror icon. So
That's awesome. I love that perspective, and I love learning about that. I think that one of the things that makes this the best horror movie is that the character Pearl, who was played by, what is her name?
Mia Goth.
Thank you, Mia Goth. Because Mia Goth is also obviously playing Maxine. You have so many mirror image scenes. You have so many like them looking at each other across a table.
Mhm.
There's touch, but cringing, and all of that is fascinating, and gives you so much depth of character for Pearl. There's not one monologue in the movie where Pearl's like, you know why I did this? Because blah blah. Like it's not. It's very much. It's a show don't tell kind of movie. You get these character motivations through very little dialogue. And I will say, and then maybe we'll touch on it, maybe we won't. I really also love Pearl the movie, but it gives more depth of context in watching this again. But it's not necessary either.
Right.
Like this movie stands alone. The characters, especially, look, all of the women characters in this are fascinating, multifaceted, complex, have motivations that are very real, and all of them are struggling under the oppression of not only like a celebrity or Hollywood style, like I want to be famous kind of culture, but also just under the oppression of the systems in place. There's great, we'll talk about it, I'm sure, the great conversation they have about sex versus love. I think there's some really powerful, poignant conversations in the first 2/3 of the movie that are just so interesting and not what you expect coming into this. But I think Pearl is fascinating, just absolutely fascinating, and also creepy as hell. Not only in the prosthetics, but also just in her motivations, and her actions are horrifying.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think that you're spot on in terms of like the lack of emphasis on her dialogue in particular. There's a lot of communication through like longing gazes or that touch that you talked about. And I think she does do a really great job. It's really interesting to see the differences between Maxine and Pearl. It is really interesting to see how those two people share their similarities and then contrast them with the other women who are part of this group as well, and see sort of where they all fall in terms of like that seeking stardom and like the various levels of that desire for fame. Also, much like Ty wanted to push himself, so did the cast. You know, he mentioned feeling like typecasting people is bullshit. I think that that's pretty evident in the people he surrounded himself with. Mia Goth, like we said, plays two Southern women played by a breathy voiced Brit. Brittany Snow is known for musicals like Hairspray and the Pitch Perfect series, and she slips comfortably into a sexually liberated Belle. Kid Cudi continues to push himself as well. Yes, Brittany Snow is really like incredible in this. She shines, in my opinion.
I think the only one that I don't care too much about is Wayne, the boyfriend. I think everyone else is really interesting. I think that the cast, it's very clear that not only did they bring their all to it, and I agree, Brittany Snow, this is like a revelation for me watching her in this, because I've never been, I've been indifferent to her, I guess I would say. But then after seeing this, I was so impressed with her ability to act. I mean, she shifted into a role that's so unlike anything she's ever done, and she masterfully handles it. And it's Kid Cudi, dude. He's so awesome, and simultaneously, I'm like, what is going on? Why is this Kid Cudi?
It's so funny. He's also like in Trap, the new M. Night Shyamalan movie, and it's another like crazy performance. God bless.
That dude has a wild career.
Yeah, I love it. Meanwhile, Jenna Ortega is the horror bedrock. She's already a bona fide Scream queen at this point. Literally, she was in Scream. So, you know, she really is bringing the star power in terms of like being a draw as a horror fan. And Ty said the first thing he always asked on casting calls was, quote, why the hell do you want to be in this movie? Because a lot of times people would have an idea in their head of what the movie was and what they were terrified it might be. And then I had an idea of what the movie actually was. And when I was talking to people about Wayne, a lot of people interpreted Wayne as like slick back hair, gold chains. When he was describing this, all I could think about was I think you should leave scene when he's like, "Oh yeah, I was a real asshole."
Floppy steaks
slick
at
back
Sal.
hair. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so he says, slick back hair, gold chains, toothpick, a creepy guy. And I was always like, this is so off base. I kept looking at the script like, I swear, this is obviously not that. And Martin Henderson just immediately understood that he's this ambitious entrepreneur who loves all these people and wants everybody to win. It's not this nihilistic, gross thing. There's no shortage of that story to tell if you wanted to tell it, but that just wasn't really the story we were out to tell. And I think that says a lot in terms of like, every character feels so precise. You know, the fact that it would be very easy for a lot of these characters to fall into the hallmark tropes of like, yeah, he's the scumbag manager or whatever who's pushing these women into porn. And like, no, that's not it. He does clearly care about these people. He goes out looking when it's nighttime and everything. Like, he is a good dude put into this situation.
He makes them sandwiches.
Yeah. As I mentioned, Mia Goth plays two roles, Pearl and Maxine. Pearl, an elderly lady, required that Mia be in the makeup chair for up to 8 hours, depending on if they needed to do full arm makeup too. But it sounds agonizing, but she spoke about how useful this was for centering herself as the character, the feeling of restriction and of there being nowhere to go absolutely being thematic. Ty said, it was a great idea until I started doing it.
I can relate to that.
And I was like, why did I do this to myself? So it took about 6 hours to get her in makeup, and that's before a 10-hour day. So it was a Herculean task on her end. And then anytime they were in a scene together, we'd have to shoot them over 2 days. One day where she was Maxine, and the other day where she was Pearl. And it's always the stuff that's the most satisfying in the movie that's technically challenging. You shoot someone getting killed in a movie, everybody loves that. But filming it is so tedious because you're trying to get blood to land in a specific spot and it never does. And then you have to clean it up and you're running out of time. So it was kind of like that. But humongous credit to Mia for owning the performance in such an amazing way that almost nobody gets it during the movie. And yeah, I definitely recognized that it was prosthetics, but I did not get that it was Mia Goth when I was seeing this in theaters.
100%. I had no idea. And the character is played so differently. None of the physical mannerisms, none of the vocal mannerisms are the same. Like it's really, really, really amazingly done. And it does feed into when you see Pearl, and it is Mia Goth playing Pearl as a young person, but you see that character like I got so much respect for her from this movie because you can tell that it's a craft. This is not just, I'm going to get up there and say some lines and scream. She created an entire character and you see it up there.
Definitely. So the movie premiered March 18th, 2022. It's a huge hit. It makes $15 million at the box office, a return against its $1 million budget. So smash.
Wow.
Yeah. People were also immediately stoked on the surprise news. The sequel was coming in September of the same year. Pearl, as you mentioned, was also a huge hit. There was the trilogy, or the conclusion of the trilogy was announced right before Pearl emerged as well. That was Maxine. I did watch all of them in order to prepare for this. I had not seen Pearl and Maxine prior to our conversation here, but I did go out and see them, or go out. I went to my living room. I watched them.
I am about to do the same with Maxine this weekend. I have not watched Maxine yet, but especially getting all hyped up again by watching this. I'm going to watch Pearl again, and then I'm going to finally watch Maxine.
Yeah, I do think that it was beneficial for me to watch them just to get that context. But I also will say I definitely think X is the best of the three.
Interesting. I'll let you know my thoughts.
But let's get into the actual movie. Extremely evocative beginning, plenty of crickets before any visuals, and then pow, you're hit with the square aspect ratio on a pastoral farmhouse landscape. And this image is shattered twice over. First, several police cars roll in from all directions. And second, the camera slowly pushes in as the aspect ratio expands with the door frame having created it in the first place. And this is such a cool shot. It really lets you know what you're in for in terms of the slick as a motherfucker editing that is in this movie. Like it's not, the aspect ratio here doesn't actually change. It was created with the framing of the door. So as it pushes in, it opens up. It's just such a cool way to do it. Like it feels so natural. The house is in the background. You see this huge field. It feels good as like a starting position. And then when you realize that like it must have been so carefully placed, like it must have been planned so meticulously, it really just shocks you from literally the word go.
And, the pushing in on the door as if welcoming you into this story and this world. And it's just those little subtle moments that are all throughout this movie that really give you. I mean, Artur, I think is the word that you used, and I fully agree. Like Ty West is creating something really magical here, and right out of the gate, like you are drawn right in.
It's also immediately clear that this was a damn massacre based on the amount of blood we see, the axe embedded in the porch, and as the sheriff continues his approach, several more bodies in the doorway of the house and televangelism blaring from the TV. An ominous tableau, no doubt.
I do like it's this version of in media res, this version of, starting from the outside of the story and then coming back into it. You know what you're getting into anyway. There's gonna be a body count, but just to give you that like tease of the bodies to try to wait, who was that? Who was that? Which one? You haven't even met the characters yet, and you're already trying to identify who the corpses are.
Yeah, and they really do tease you. The sheriff is brought to the basement, and we just see their reactions. It doesn't seem good, and he's like, my God. And the camera like pushes beyond his shoulder 24 hours into the past.
Yes. Now, I, the first time, found that infuriating and then forgot about it by the end of the movie. This time, I knew what they were looking at down there and even picked up a little bit more of what happened down there. We'll get into that, but it really is just like, oh my God.
It's rough. It's rough down
really
there.
Went for it here.
Yeah, I think him muttering, my God, is honestly putting it mildly. But as we push into the past, we also push into a whole heap of cocaine getting chopped up. And this is Maxine, who is cautioned by Wayne to take it easy. You know what they say about too much of a good thing. Vaguely sinister, Wayne. But he also builds her up. You're special. There's nobody like you. And she takes it, telling her reflection, you're a fucking sex symbol. And that's the very first words we hear from her.
Very, very Boogie Nights. And those comparisons are not accidental, I'm sure. But that alone, that doing coke, getting empowering words from what's clearly her partner, and then her looking in the mirror, you know who Maxine is right away.
Yeah, for sure. And who she is part of the Bayou Burlesque Cocktails and Topless Entertainment family in Houston, Texas.
There's a shot that comes very shortly where they get in the van and they drive away, and the van has something funny on it too. But it pulls away from like the little shop, and then you just see like the industry that is Houston, like the smokestacks, the oil, and all I could think was, having been to Houston many times, yep, nope, that's what Houston looks like.
It's so good. First of all, what the van says is plowing service, which is very funny. And less funny, but very impactful, is that the camera angle starts very flat. So it's just the mural, which I'll discuss in a moment, on the building, and a blue sky that matches the mural perfectly. But as they drive away, the camera cranes up in what is also, just a very impressive shot for how much money that they had. And we see the actual backdrop. It's not this blue sky. It is rusted, corrugated metal warehouses, factories pumping smog, as in the summertime jauntily juxtaposes the grim scene until a Star-Spangled 1979 hits the screen. My God, they really just nail you to the goddamn wall with this thing.
It's the first of many great song cues in this movie. A movie that mostly, though, like, it doesn't have much of a score. It has a few scattered songs that are very scene appropriate or mood appropriate. But that sting jumping into in the summertime, this joyous occasion for them, this joyful feeling while they're just in the middle of the worst industrial bullshit ever. It just like it's again like this he is very much capturing like the hopefulness of the have-nots in the face of a world that isn't going to give them anything. And it's so ominous when it backs up and you realize like, oh, their fun summer road trip is also just like, what a horrible life they're living. Not by their occupations, but by like, look at the place that they live. Look how desolate everything is, how dangerous everything is.
Definitely. And their plan is to make it big by shooting a dang porno, The Farmer's Daughter. As Wayne says, if we do even half the numbers of Debbie Does Dallas, I'm out of the red for good. This is, of course, not only probably the most famous porno. I mean, right? That's gotta be the
Debbie
most
Does
famous.
Dallas or Deep
Yeah.
Throat, maybe
Deep Throat. Yeah. Although I feel like that's even like less of a straight up porno, right? But anyway, the point is that Debbie Does Dallas, not only a reference to a very successful pornography film, but also foreshadowing because the star of Debbie Does Dallas, things did not go great for her after that movie. I believe that her family found out that it was her and like basically like kicked her out and disowned her, and she like basically vanished. I think that like nobody knows exactly what happened to her, but she just like vanished into the ether after being kicked out of her home. So not ideal.
Not who you want to be compared to.
No, definitely not. More foreshadowing happens as well, because we must shout out this fabulous mural on the side of Bayou Burlesque. A lovely alligator there approaching a nude woman in the swamp, which is probably not foreshadowing, actually, and nothing to worry about.
We'll never see that again. Just a cute alligator.
That's right. So they're on the road. They're futzing with the radio. They turn some radio evangelism to disco, which is another important juxtaposition. The idea of extreme repression taking hold at the same time that extreme expression was also becoming in vogue musically and sexually. The stratification of the poles was becoming much more extreme.
And it is, I mean, thematically, that's at the heart of this movie. The conflict there, and it's not just like an external conflict, but it is absolutely an internal conflict that you see in Pearl. Mm-hmm. I think it's really interesting that you don't see that conflict in Maxine. You don't see that conflict in Kid Cudi's character. You don't see that conflict in Brittany Snow's character. You do see the wonderful dichotomy and the interesting part of that with Jenna Ortega and her boyfriend, who are kind of both walking the line between trying to live what would be seen as like a virtuous and moral life, but then also for different reasons and to their varying degrees, wanting to embrace the new, the avant-garde and expression, much to, I think, the boyfriend's downfall.
Yeah, right. And so the people in the back of the van with them are RJ, the cameraman, Lorraine, his girlfriend and boom operator, Jackson Hole, the male talent, that's Kid Cudi, Bobby Lynn, the other woman in the picture, that's Brittany Snow, right? And Bobby Lynn is clearly smart. She's reasonable. She's spirited. She's looking forward to this experience. But Lorraine is a lot more recalcitrant about the whole idea. She's a little like, I can't believe that we're doing this. I didn't realize necessarily that it was going to be like a straight up porno. And RJ is trying to say like, it's not going to be that. I'm trying to bring something more to it. And I think that is sort of like where it becomes that interesting conversation point of like, okay, the movies in the like Black Emanuelle series, like certainly they are like erotica, quote unquote, but many of them are not sexy at all, and also have like real bizarre stuff in them that make them like a fun watch. So like, is that just like a porno that you're watching, or is it something more? Like, it becomes a very interesting question, I think, that RJ is sort of operating in that sphere with.
It does mirror a lot of what people were trying to do with pornography in the 70s, especially, where they were trying to find ways to make pornography mainstream, or to make a movie that was a movie but included explicit sex scenes.
I mean, you had to. You couldn't just like get a webcam and be like, here we fucking go. Like, it had to be a movie. there had to be a plot. It was truly a different time. You also get another really cool shot as the van drives along. On one side of the road is a field of cattle, and on the other is a bleached white cow skull. Just evocative, contrasting images of life and death. They're in the same struggle we all are to ease the life we got before death. And this also ties into why they're going so far out of Houston, because this county raised property taxes and everybody is struggling. So a little cash goes a long way here, he says. Wayne says that.
It also gives us our first taste of the gore to come with a cow on the side of the road that's been hit by a truck, and some real explicit gore and
it's nasty.
some gunk under the tires. It is nasty. It's also the last gore we'll see in this movie.
That's true. It actually does come slightly later, but it's like another cow scene. But it is intense. It is intense. But Maxine says that she's tired of being patient. She needs to be famous because she's sick and tired of never getting what she wants. I have cosmopolitan tastes, Wayne. Great line. But Wayne
says that she's handing him a loaf of Wonder Bread.
But Wayne reassures her the X factor she has is going to make sure everybody with a pulse lusts after her.
The titular X.
That's right. Meanwhile, RJ is talking about how he's excited to experiment with the edit, make it all avant-garde like they're doing in France. It's classier that way, quote, and a good trick to disguise the budget. There's many times where RJ is clearly meant to be like a Ty West stand-in, talking about making this movie and like how, the flash of the editing is a good trick. And it's funny because immediately after RJ says that, we get a nice little trick to disguise the low budget as we switch the film stock and go back to a square aspect ratio as they shoot the first scene of The Farmer's Daughter. So very funny editing joke there. Very funny. Hi.
And I think as we're talking about this, that's something that I love about this movie. It's fun and it's funny and it doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel like a poorly written one-liner. It feels like the jokes are subtly weaved in.
Mm-hmm. We also get another great editing moment. This is something I've only seen in Easy Rider before, but seems pretty obvious to be like right in line with the kind of movies that Ty would be referencing with this. And I actually do think this may be heresy. I think it's executed better here than it is in Easy Rider. But it's this sort of like stutter transition where it flashes between the televangelism on the gas station TV that they're at and the herd of docile cattle that we saw before. It creates this commentary. The Kuleshov effect is more on display in that moment than ever before.
I love that. I love that, and I think I missed the kind of intent behind that.
It's crazy. It really is. We finally settle on the cows for this new scene, and this is where one of them has been absolutely splatted by a truck. It does cause Maxine to retch as they pass. She said, "I hate blood and guts," which is, of course, another very funny, like, we know what kind of movie we're watching. And Wayne, another ominous freaking foreshadow, says, "Just when you thought you'd escape the slaughterhouse." Stop talking, Wayne. You're gonna get us fucking killed, dude.
He cursed everybody. I'm right out of the gate. It's all Wayne's fault.
That's right. They arrive at the farmhouse, which RJ is stoked about. It's perfect. Gonna add a lot of production value. The second Ty West insert here.
It's so funny because you never think that he's kind of like a bullshit like wannabe. Like he does seem to know what he's talking about and doing, but then he also says things like that, and you're like, "Come on, man! It's a shitty barn. It's a shitty guest house at a farmhouse. Like,
but they're on location, JP." As they roll up, the subtitles called the music "haunting," and I gotta say, I'm inclined to agree. It's certainly ominous as they roll up, at the very least, which belies the eagerness of the gang. It's another real cool juxtaposition of like making you feel like we know something that they don't.
It's remarkable how immediately, as soon as we're where the action is going to take place, the feeling of dread is almost immediate for the audience. The feeling of social discomfort, the feeling of this doesn't feel right, something is off here. It's like immediate for the audience, even though our wayward heroes are just kind of traipsing around having fun.
Definitely. And I think there are some really subtle things that help that along. Wayne's walk up to the front completely recreates the shots that we saw earlier with the sheriff.
Yep.
And so obviously it's minus the viscera, but it makes you think about that scene that we saw.
I mean, yeah, it does. And you again, this like it's building this tense anticipation because you know where this is going. You see now the set where there will be a hell of a lot of corpses, and you just start looking at every character knowing they're probably not making it.
Lorraine is upset as Jackson and Bobby start to smooch in front of them. You got to start somewhere, says RJ, but she calls the movie smut. He says it is possible to make a good, dirty movie, and she denies being a prude. And perhaps both are a little bit in denial here.
Mm-hmm.
Howard, the old man.
We hear that.
Yeah, right. That's the last. Crazy that never comes back up. Howard, the old man, is paranoid about visitors, and he holds Wayne at gunpoint, but eventually recalls the conversation. Never can be too careful with strangers, says the old man, something that the gang could bear to keep in mind. We also see that there is a pistol in the van as the rest of the crew tenses at Wayne's standoff, setting up a Chekhov's gun to reappear later as well. This one actually is a Chekhov's gun.
And Chekhov's unloaded gun, though.
That's right. But it's also interesting. So it's like a fun contrast to the shotgun that was not teased at all and appears quite suddenly. So there's like a reverse Chekhov's gun that happens at the exact same time as a real Chekhov's gun.
Oh my God. It's that thing where like, I mean, and like, I've even lived in Texas, but I still have never been someone that's like, I would be comfortable if someone was just brandishing a gun around me.
Right.
And this is just like, this old man is just walking everywhere with a shotgun all the time. Like, that does not feel safe to me.
No, definitely doesn't. They're renting his boarding house, though, and unload the van. While this happens, there's a real psycho moment, though, as Maxine sees an elderly woman leering at them from the window atop the house. Not the last psycho reference that we'll see in this movie.
Fact. Yeah, they're building the list like right out of the gate of like what they're referencing or paying homage to, and Psycho is certainly on that list.
Definitely. Large wide shot as well as they're led by Howard to the boarding house. Also kind of feels like Death leading the dancers in the Seventh Seal, to be honest. So while we're building this sort of filmic language of historic triumphs of filmmaking, it does feel like he is pulling a lot from the shoulders of giants here. The building itself, though, has a tainted history to start with. It housed soldiers in the Civil War, and I'm willing to bet that they weren't the good guys.
You think?
I'm willing to bet. That's all I'll say. Howard eyeballs them all up, and he says he doesn't like the look of them, so keep it fucking cool, kids. But with an extra $20 to sweeten the deal, he grumbles and leaves. Wayne tells Maxine, his pecker probably ain't been hard since before you were born. I'd hate people like us, too. More of that same struggle between life and death that we saw. And like, yes, it's a funny line, but also that is like so much the thesis.
That's why I'm laughing. Is like, it's a funny line, but also like, and that's what the movie's about.
Right. He really comes out and says it. The shoot begins while Jackson and Bobby take the first scene. Maxine wanders away to explore the grounds. What I really like about this dock that she winds up at is that it feels a lot like the area around the Texas Chainsaw Massacre house in a way that isn't reflected in that movie. In the movie Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it is scorched, sandblasted desert, basically. But when I went to go visit the actual location, I happened to get there with some time to kill before it opened because I'm on the East Coast and things open at normal hours. So it turns out that's not the case in Texas. And so I wandered around a little bit, and there is a dock just like this and a pond just like this right off to the right of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre house, and also some lovely bluebells. So,
oh wow, that's so cool.
Yeah, it really felt like, I don't know, it just felt like an homage to the reality of the location in a way that is a little less like on the surface than a lot of the homages that are happening to other movies.
and it's such a key part of like establishing in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, especially like that the locale is just as important as the people or the house. Like it's there's something so eerie and tranquil, but in a weird and not good way about the entire property. And Maxine wandering around it reminded me of, oh God, it's the movie about Ayers Rock, and the women that they're like in Australia and they're wandering around. It's and everyone ends up missing, and it's like a story of like how all these people went missing.
I don't think I know this one.
They're all she is she's wandering aimlessly and almost in like a daze because she's not really interacting in social ways. She's just walking and observing and like embracing kind of the small beauties of little things. Like it's simultaneously it's like haunting. Like, why are you get your hackles up here?
Yeah.
Oh, look, there's an alligator in the pond. Isn't that cute? No.
Right. Yeah. She strips and goes for a dip. Meanwhile, there's an alligator in the pond, and behind her awaits the old woman we saw earlier lurking in the trees, which she also doesn't clock. Also, I do want to just say, before we get too far away from it, I already hear people yelling at me. I know in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, they talk about going down to the watering hole to swim, but you don't see it, folks. So I don't want to hear about it. We only see the scorched desert. So haters back off.
Picnic at Hanging Rock is the movie I was talking about.
Yes, I have heard very good things about it, but have not.
It's just there's just an eeriness to their wandering, and it does not end up going well for them.
Well, it certainly seems to be the case in this as well. Back at the shoot, things did go great, though. Wayne is rock hard, and Jackson is all proud of himself. Until Bobby demonstrates that it was actually her acting ability on display and not his penis prowess. I think I love you, he says. A funny exchange with her simple, bless your heart.
It's such a cute exchange, and you understand the affection these two have for each other, if not the kind of shape and boundaries of it, although that gets clarified in a little bit.
Yeah. We get another stutter transition back to Maxine, splayed out floating in the dead man's pose. The camera pans around to reveal this croc in the reeds, waiting just like the old woman. Really awesome shot from the sky as we see the total distance, and then the gators approach from behind her. She's totally unaware. She even takes her time getting up. And action, shouts Wayne just as she does.
It's such a classic version of the killer is behind you, but you don't know it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also like, it's too early for that yet. And we all know this, but it's still like you get a little bit of the like, whoa. Okay, get out.
Right. It gets close enough that you're like, okay, we're ready, get out, because this can't happen yet. But
did that gator get paid for this? Or,
say.
I hope they didn't exploit him.
I hope so as well. They shoot the setup scene for the movie. It's about 3 sentences. It's so funny. It's so flimsy. He's like, my car broke down. And she's like, come on in. And then they fuck.
It includes a lot of non-subtle double entendre.
Mm-hmm. Would you like to come inside?
Yes.
Okay. On her way back, though, Maxine is beckoned over by the old woman to the main house. So funny how eerie it all is. And then when she finally speaks in a hoarse whisper, it's like, lemonade.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, I think it's playing, as you pointed out, it's playing on this kind of exploitation of old women. Honestly, this creepification of the elderly, especially women. And,
yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. It creeps me out. It's something I need to analyze about myself and think about why and what the impacts is. But I will say, very uncomfortable. The minute she is on screen and talking, I'm like, nope, this is unpleasant.
please go away, Pearl. Very fun contrast once again as Maxine sits in the wide shot darkness and the porno shoot is square and brightly lit. You know, the contrast between the lemonade drinking and that, I just feel really cool. It's also an interesting shot as she is sitting across from herself and she absolutely houses the lemonade to get out of there.
It's really funny. Really funny.
Oh, good.
Well, and we this is after the swim is when we start to see Pearl in what I would, I'm not Pearl, Maxine in what I would say is like her iconic look of the overalls with nothing on underneath and the very heavy blue eyeshadow,
Right.
prominent freckles, and you just the contrast of that versus Pearl and the kind of the innocent beauty and the optimism and the hope of
Right.
Maxine. It's so stark, and that comes back. Especially the eye makeup comes back, but that scene, because that juxtaposition of those two in the kitchen versus the other two filming the scene in the kitchen of the guest house. It's wild, and it's so deliberate, and it's so. I guess I would say there's not a lot of times that I would say that Ty West is subtle, and I don't know that he's necessarily subtle here, but it works, and
it does. I did forget to
going
mention
for a
that
lot of things.
they're both drinking lemonade in the porno shoot. They are also like drinking lemonade there, so it's certainly a cool juxtaposed contrast there. Bobby whispers, "Come with me before Daddy gets home," and Pearl brings Maxine over to a wall of photos before Howard gets home. And she says, "I was young once too, a dancer in those early days. But when the war came, not everything turns out how you expect."
She was a little spooky.
Yeah. She also recognizes the X factor in Maxine, saying, "You're beautiful. Look at this mirror." And a wooden beam splits the shot between them as a clear visual. This is the young version and the old version language. Like, again, like you said, it's not necessarily subtle, but it is very effective in terms of like they linger on it. They let you absorb the fact that these two are reflections of each other.
It's expertly done in, you can't see the photographs of young Pearl very well, but you can tell that it is absolutely Mia Goth. And but like again, they don't hammer it home. No one comes in and be like, "Oh my God, you look just like her."
That's crazy.
But it is, yeah, not subtle, but like really well done, and just like I really appreciate when it's given for me to uncover rather than it being spelled out in exposition, and I think they do a really great job of that.
Right, it's still interesting expressionism. It's like the subtlety is overrated as far as I'm concerned. Everything with a pulse will lust over Maxine Minx, promised Wayne, and that includes Pearl, who eyeballs the side boob revealed by Maxine's overalls, kind of pokes her side. It's interesting though, because it's not necessarily strictly a sexual lust. It 100%. Is also a lust for the vitality that she is full of, the vigor of youth. That's what she wants.
And in that, especially with it being Mia Goth playing against Mia Goth, good for her.
Yeah,
she does it really well. I think she captures that in Pearl so well that like it's confusing, I think, both to the audience and to Pearl, but it is whatever it is for. It is a lust for what Maxine has.
Yeah, absolutely. And she's sent out the back surreptitiously, though, as Howard returns home. "It'll be our little secret," Pearl says. And Maxine is like, "What will?" Like, I don't understand what's happening here.
I love that part. And I love that it comes back.
It does. We also got a jump scare from Wayne as she scrambles back and does another bump to prepare. "You're not going to end up like them," she thinks to herself. Howard, though, notices the second glass. Who the hell was here? This is also a cool moment as we sort of go through the house. Dolls aplenty as the camera tracks up to check in on Pearl. Very easy to sort of see as this idea of like frozen glamour. There is no life to these women, but it's because they have been sort of like, cryo frozen into like this one image. So
absolutely. And there is no mention of or implication of Pearl having children. So it also speaks to the like, this is a woman who still has her dolls. This is a
Right.
woman who has not let go of her times past.
Right. And inspired as a witness to life. She's up in the attic, dressing up. She's got makeup out. She's dragging a comb through her scraggly hair. She's getting gussied up, folks. And the camera sneaks out around the barn. They're shooting the next scene of the farmer's daughter in.
Let me ask you a quick question, though, George.
Sure.
Do you think they could have resolved the conflict of this movie if they had just like put on an old phonograph record and done the jitterbug with Pearl? Like, do you think that might have just been like, and she was fine? Like, oh, I haven't danced like that since 1992.
No, she likes Wee Marie Wee or whatever the hell that song was. She's not trying to jitterbug. She likes the slower stuff.
Right. Oh, God. That scene's great, too. Okay.
So, no, I think she would say, I hate the jitterbug and stab them all right. The camera sneaks around the barn that they're shooting the next scene of the farmer's daughter in. Very fun because it does feel like a continuation of the POV from the previous scene in the house and not just superfluous sheen.
Mhm.
But things start to warp. It's Pearl leering at them, not Howard as expected. And suddenly Maxine looks back and is her. And then she's back before it fades to black. There's also a great shot of her staring directly into the camera. Not simply bad acting, but more that she's, and by that I mean bad acting on the part of Maxine, the character, not Mia Goth. It's not just that, but it's also Maxine being distracted during this sex and finding the idea of fame more erotic than her partner.
It's also the moment when you do see the bareback of Pearl, and when she turns, she has the blue eyeshadow.
Right. And it's also interesting because this feels partially like it might also be because she's performing like Bobby was in a way that Jackson was clearly not. Since he pushed RJ out of the way and said, let me handle this. He also did actually come while Brittany did not Brittany Snow. Bobby, Brittany and Bobby, those names are too close. That's the problem here. Bobby clearly shows that she was faking, but Jackson finishes. So, you know, there's a clear indication of like the women are doing this performatively to get something else, whereas the men are actually just like involved in the sex part. Like that's what's driving them here.
That's interesting, though, what you said, because it's almost as if Bobby is performing getting off, whereas Maxine is getting off, not like you said, not because of her partner, but at the idea of being famous. That for her, it's not even acting. It's actually, she is in this moment, like fully immersed in the thing. It's just that her goal is not a climax for herself or her partner. Her goal is, I'm going to be a star.
Right. That's right. Pearl heads back as the sun sets, Howard grimly waiting in the living room, but he is disarmed when she sees the dress she's in and she starts to dance. We talked about this, he says. You know I can't. My heart.
It's a very like 50s and 60s kind of setup of just like, my ticker can't take it. Like, that's not really how science works. But
well, she is devastated. She pleads with him, but he walks off, and we get another stutter transition over a spinning record because they are trapped in a loop. Loretta Lynn's Act Naturally plays over a very satisfied Maxine emerging into the room full of life, a direct contrast befitted by that transition of her satisfaction and youth with Pearl's disappointed isolation in the dim room. Lorraine asks a question of the group regarding why the camera changes things for them enough to penetrate through any monogamy. Don't you believe in love? And Maxine says, take it from me. Letting outdated traditions control your life will get you nowhere. I got better places to be than where I came from. Plus, it's just sex, they say. It's a gas. We're just not afraid to admit it. Queer, straight, black, white, it's all disco because one day we'll be too old to fuck. A clear callback to the channel changing at the beginning where it's contrasted with disco and televangelism.
I think this is bizarrely my favorite scene in the movie.
Interesting. It is. I mean, it's a great discussion. You know, they talk about how you can control who you love, but not who you're attracted to, and that the people they turn on are scared of that, but also can't look away. It's why they obsessively talk about sinners and how to control other people's lives, how to take away avenues of expression. It's a foxy car wreck. And that's why the home video market is going to explode. Finally, people can see what they desire in the privacy of their own home, free of judgment. And it is worth noting, of course, that this applies to horror as well, with the satanic panic and whatnot. It is a really fascinating scene.
The scene is so displaced from the movie in a lot of ways. It's a meta conversation, both at face value about what they're talking about in terms of sex and love and puritanical values, but also like in the broader context of like, as you're absolutely horror movies, pornography, but just in general, like that dichotomy. Like, are we, what's driving us and what are our goals, and what happiness do we have right now? Because I think a big thing about Pearl and Howard is they're not happy. They're very unhappy. They've followed certain rules, even though their inclinations were not to follow those rules. And they're finding, at this point in the movie, at least, they're frustrated. They're frustrated with their lives.
Really.
Whereas you have these young people who are living something different and doing something different, and they seem very happy with their lives, but at what cost? Probably none. Probably none.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even their cheers is to, among other things, the perverts who've been paying their bills for years. Here's to a life of excess, of being young and having fun till the day we die. And the power of independent cinema. Had to sneak that one in there, didn't you, Ty? Jackson plays Landslide for them while Bobby sings. And this is, I think, one of those subtle moments that we talked about that does not happen often, but does show up here, because certainly it is visually not subtle. It's cool. There's frame splitting, and it goes back and forth between Pearl taking off her makeup sadly and the group mournfully listening to Landslide. But for me, it also indicates these people have other skills and talents. They just don't value those above this one, above being attractive and being able to fuck well. Like that is a skill to them.
Fully. I think that, again, this is why this part of the movie, this is my favorite, is that exact reveal is, these people are talented and can do a lot of things. We've already talked about, Bobby is very smart. It's very apparent how smart she is. The what is it, RJ and Lorraine, like they know what they're doing when it comes to filmmaking and sound. Like these are talented people. And that scene reveals just I mean, look, I'm a Fleetwood Mac, ride or die, and I have a Stevie Nicks t-shirt that I wear too often. I love Landslide. I think it's a great song. I think this is a version of it that is different than what the song is usually used to intend. It's usually very much about a father-daughter relationship. It's very much about mourning the times that we didn't have together. And here, it shifts it, and they take it very literally. I've been afraid of changing. This, and it leads to Jenna Ortega's character's big, I'm going to do something. I'm going to do something.
Right. She wants to do empowering. Yeah, exactly. I will also say, before we get off the like crazy frame splits, there's one moment that really makes me laugh where the black bar is in the middle, but both sides are still the same scene. It's like, that's a weird randomly one. Breaking it up. It makes me laugh a lot. I don't know why it's in there, but it's good. Like, it's funny. But yeah, Lorraine suddenly says she wants to do a scene in the movie. RJ is shocked and denies her. Well, why not? She says, I've been thinking about it all day and I'm young. She's getting swept up in things, liked what she saw in spite of herself. And if we're making a good, dirty movie, then I don't want to just carry the equipment.
I think it's such an interesting character choice. It makes so much sense for kind of the direction the movie is going in. And the first time I saw it, I remember feeling like that's an empowered person. That's really cool. That's especially because you have RJ, who has been saying the entire time, we're making art. This is art. We're going to make art. This is more important. She sits in this conversation with the actors who are telling her about their views on sex and pornography. And she seems to represent more than her boyfriend, the idea of like what they're really trying to create, what they mean by art, and that she wants to participate in the artistic process. And he reacts well.
Yeah, definitely. He reacts very well. Although I will say, he does have possibly my favorite line of the movie here, where he says the story can't just change halfway through, and he's clearly scrambling. And she says, "What about Psycho? You love that movie." And he gives the most funny and thorough answer, where he said, "Well, Psycho is a horror movie, and that plot was a MacGuffin to build suspense, and I'm not making that kind of movie." And I went, "Well, he got her. That's true."
Oh man, it is such a wink and nod to the fucking nerds like us that are watching it. Like it was such a great exchange there.
Yeah, for sure. But she is pissed, and it kind of diminishes the effort to make something good, saying nobody cares about the plot. They're here for tits, ass, and a big dick, so let's give them what they want. And she throws "When did you become such a prude?" back in his face.
Great moment.
Boom. Wayne takes RJ outside to calm him down and basically says, "You can't stop her, so if you try, you're only going to engage her spite drive." And RJ insults the whole gang and reveals that he does, in fact, look down on everyone else, calling Jackson a man whore, and says Lorraine is a nice girl, not like the others. And before walking away, Wayne gets real close and tells him, "Ain't none of them nice girls." Wow.
It's interesting, that line, because you can read it a couple of different ways. I am now married to a nice girl who is also not a nice girl, and I also know the, like, when you are interacting with someone who is strong-willed, male or female, the more you push them, the more they're going to do exactly the opposite of what you're telling them to do.
Yeah.
I know it, and I just, in general, people like that, like, that's an admirable trait, to not be pushed, and to not let other people control you or your body. This also we'll get to it, but I do want to talk about the boyfriend's reaction after the scene.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Slow-mo kicks in. The shoot starts up again. His miserable face is so fucking funny as he shoots that. But
And she takes off the crucifix, like,
oh, yeah.
non-subtly.
Pearl awakes with the moon full above. RJ is crying in the shower. Feels like a pretty psycho angle.
I love this scene so much of him crying in the shower. It's, and I before I even get into it, and you know, I'm going to talk about sexual assault. I'm going to talk about rape, and I do not mean to diminish that, the import of that, both in real life and in art. There is a trope in movies of the rape shower, whether it's an actual rape, an assault, a feeling of being afraid, and it is almost exclusively women in the shower, crying, huddled up, and just so afraid, and hoping that the water is going to wash away their shame, their fear, their regret, the memory. And it's an overused trope to the degree that it has become a bit trite. But I think that there's still something powerful in that, in acknowledging that, like, trauma begins immediately, and the trauma of feeling violated is profound, and a lot. I mean, and when it's not being exploitative, I think that is an expression of trying to provide the humanity for the victim. All of that said, we have a rape shower here, but the rape shower is the man, and his feeling violated is not because he has been physically violated. He feels violated because his possession was taken away from him because his woman slept with another man, and now he feels emasculated and he feels violated. And I think that it's such an important scene. And then again, they never say it. Like, there's a way that you can just watch the scene and feel really bad for this guy who feels like his girlfriend just betrayed him. But simultaneously, after all the things that this idiot said, after all the bullshit he said about making art, after all the conversations with everyone and understanding their motivations for him, what they do, he becomes almost immediately the least likable character in the movie to me.
Yeah.
And
well, he's revealed to be a fraud, basically.
Yes. And it's through the rape shower scene that you see him reveal how shallow, how possessive, and honestly, how stereotypical male he is in the face of all the other like characters being way outside of archetype, way outside of norms. And what a fraud.
He turned out to actually be the film bro that he didn't seem like he was.
100%. That it's future Michael Bay right there.
So like I said, this angle though does feel also pretty psycho. It's like kind of over his shoulder, and he goes psycho indeed, grabbing the keys and fleeing with the van and equipment. Let's see how far they get without me, he grumbles. Again, very petty, very selfish, very much like a very masculine rejection of like, I feel emasculated, and so I'm going to make it everybody else's problem now. Also, Don't Fear the Reaper is playing on the radio, which is, of course,
so fucking great. So fucking good. Again, the musical cues are like few and far between, but they're all really good.
And yeah, Pearl is there blocking the road as it plays. It's like just, expressionistic. It's very funny, very good, on the nose. He gets out to check on her, and she gives him a hug and a smooch. Why won't you look at me? She asks. Look at me like you looked at her. I can show you what I can do.
This is a good impression. Did you workshop this, didn't you?
Oh, I mean, I actually played Pearl. I am Mia Goth playing George.
Holy shit, the prosthetics are so good, dude.
Hello, it's me, Mia Goth, and I've actually been running the best little horror house in Philly the whole time.
This sounds like a Reeves impression of anything.
Yes, I've always thought that Reeves' impression of anything sounded like me, Mia Goth. I thought I was kind of disappointing in Infinity Pool. So he rejects her, and she stabs him in the dang old neck. 59 minutes in. Now that's how you establish that the third act is beginning, baby.
And she stabs him in the neck, and then that's the end of the scene.
That's well. It's funny, JP. I think you might actually miss something, but there's a really nice shot there as he croaks in the light of the van, especially as it finishes his psycho moment from earlier with the focus on the blood spray and the knife plunging, very reminiscent of Janet Leigh's death. It's cool that like the shower scene and this work in tandem to create the psycho reference.
Right after Psycho was referenced in the movie.
Right.
I love the use of the red light. I think the implication was that the blood got on the headlights.
Right.
And
yes, it
so
covers
everything is washed out in red.
And it looks like a gauze from stage.
I like that. Like the gels that you put in.
Yes. Yes.
Yep. I also love, look, there's something deliberately penetrating about her attacking people. It's very deliberate. It's not very understated, but you feel her rage, her anger, and her frustration. And it's one of the scenes where they did such good practical effects that she repeatedly is stabbing him. There's chunk coming up. It goes on longer than you would expect. Like, honestly, if she had just stabbed him in the throat and then they cut to another scene, it would have been like, oh, and he died, and that was a bad death.
Yeah.
No. She's really getting in there.
She's working out some frustrations here. Bro looks like ground beef by the end.
He does.
And she does a dance to Wee Wee Marie, which cuts through Don't Fear the Reaper as she's transported back to the stage, which, does play, like I said, with the blood coating the headlights like gels for spotlights. It's all working together.
It's so great. The music cutting in, and you're just in her moment. And this is where I will say, like, having seen Pearl, this scene has so much more weight because of, go see Pearl. Go see Pearl.
Yeah, when I watched it, I did the Leonardo DiCaprio point when Wee Marie started playing.
For those at home, I just did the point at him.
He did it. He pointed at me, and
great.
And
great.
I was.
I'm Leonardo DiCaprio.
That's a really good impression, dude.
Thank you.
Lorraine wakes up to no RJ and solicits Wayne's help to find him. They split up to look, and Lorraine stumbles across Harold emerging from his house to look for Pearl. Meanwhile, Wayne goes into the barn and steps on a plank with a nail in it, and woof. They do a great job of showing you it well in advance to build that tension. And kind of like the alligator scene from before, where like you wonder if they're gonna be crazy and like suddenly kill her that early into the movie. Same thing here, where like it's on screen for so long and so steadily that you're like, this has got to be a fake out. And then he just steps right on it. Like he fully goes for it.
Horrifying. It's horrifying. I hated it. I loved it, but I hated it.
Yeah, it's rough. And he limps towards some shifting shadows. And I was struck by the subversion of Lorraine being in a shirt long enough to basically be a dress, while Wayne is in the vulnerable state of undress with his little tighty whitey briefs there. Although it wouldn't have offered much protection from the pitchfork he gets through the eyes in a very Fulci-esque scene.
No, yet again, the practical effects, the gore, really great in this. I would also like to point out, and I have not looked into this, this is my theory. There is an old joke about like the three holes, and like, don't stick your dick in the hole. Like the salesman is staying at the farmer's house and there's three holes and he's not supposed to. There's lots of different variations of it, but there are three holes on the side of the barn and he's looking through them like a peephole or like a glory hole. And that's where he dies. And I do think there's something to that it is referencing, because it also creates the idea of like, well, what is Pearl been getting up to out here at the three holes? This is interesting. But yeah, he gets it good in the eyeballs.
Certainly does. It is gruesome, no doubt.
But
you thought the nail would be. It's so funny
tetanus that gets him.
Yeah, that's right. That's the real killer. It's so funny too, because like it happens so suddenly after the nail that you're like, okay, something just happened. So now I have a little bit of time before the next thing happens. And no, it happens right away instead because he gets you.
It's 100%. And it reminds me of Scream in that way, where it is yet again subverting your expectation of who will be safe or when someone will be safe. And no. He got it good.
Yeah. Harold sends Lorraine into the basement for another light. Please, my wife isn't well. She could fall and break her hip.
Is that foreshadowing?
Couldn't be. Of course, it is the most ominous ass basement. And while she finds the light uneventfully, Harold has locked her in. So she goes back to search for another way out. And in doing so, finds another man strung up from the ceiling. This man is actually declared missing on the milk carton that Jackson will drink out of momentarily, and makes you realize,
okay,
that when Harold was annoyed, it wasn't just Wayne at the beginning. It might have been more than just general curmudgeon vibes. They might have wanted to capture him too.
Interesting. Now, I feel like something I put together this time that I hadn't put together the first time I saw it was the man is naked. His pants are pulled down around his ankles, and the camera very much focuses in on his dingus. And I read that to be the implication was that Pearl was trying to like get off on this guy, perhaps his corpse.
I think he was a sex slave. Like, I think that he was kidnapped for Pearl because Harold can't perform anymore because of his heart, and he wants to do whatever she wants. And I think that the same thing was gonna happen to Wayne as well if he had arrived solo.
God, 15 years and they would have had Viagra. All this would have been fine. Could have danced the jitterbug.
Could have, poor Harold, he could have danced that jitterbug if only he'd waited. Jackson wakes up and he hears the scream, but isn't sure since, quote, old habits die hard, he says, referencing his time in Vietnam. And he steps outside and finds Harold, who says, "My wife, she's missing and gets confused by the dark." More sundowning, which is another comparison point between this and the visit. And Jackson clocks the shotgun. A lot of firepower for a missing wife. "It's for gators. I found her once by the edge of the pond."
I mean, honestly, I believed him.
Sure.
The first time I was like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And Pearl seems to be the bad one. Maybe he's a good dude.
Maybe. Jackson offers the help. Very funny moment as his dick is revealed to be absolutely enormous while he stands there nude in the moonlight.
Do you think that was Cuddy's real junk, or do you think?
Yeah, I'm sure, man. I'm sure.
If I was hanging low like that, I would show it off on camera too.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. Jackson, yeah. So
I find an area where you felt uncomfortable, George.
No, it's just like it's clearly a prosthetic.
What are you gonna tell me?
Sorry for doubting you, Kid Cudi, but I'm pretty sure it's a prosthetic. Love the music. Not positive that's his real dong. My apologies.
Kid Cudi, come on the podcast. Tell us if that was a prosthetic.
I'll bring it back. The show will reemerge from the dead for one episode with Kid Cudi if he wants to come on and defend himself. So, but they head for the lake and they split up to cover more ground. But Jackson finds a car dumped. This must be the man's in the basement's car that they shoved in there. But also very psycho. Again, it looks exactly like when he pushes the car into the lake. But it's funny, especially so you actually, now that I'm thinking about this might be a different car that we see in Pearl. But
I think Pearl's the one where they push him in the lake. I don't think they push him in the lake.
But it is, the car is dumped. It exists. Yes. I'm wondering if that is now the same car or if it is.
Oh, whereas I took it to mean that it was like there's more than one car in that lake.
That may be, truly. Like that was how I initially took it. I thought it was the man in the basement's car. Now I'm wondering if it's the other one. It may not be, but in both instances, it looks very psycho. But in Pearl, when it happens, it's particularly funny because it like rolls in much like it happens in Psycho. But then in Psycho, after the beat, it does bubble and start to sink. And in this, it just stays there. It just fucking stays propped up out of the water. It's very funny. Pearl sneaks her way into Maxine's room and ogles her before undressing and getting in beside her, feeling her taut skin with envy and leaving blood on her as well.
Yeah, I don't like any of that.
No. Jackson is startled by Harold and his shotgun, who mourns that he can't give Pearl what she wants. Meanwhile, you can do what you want, and the last Bohemian who stayed here, the guy in the cellar, was the same. Traipsing around in barely any clothes, enticing my wife.
Enticing my wife.
Enticing my wife. And then he unloads on him. Rip King.
And without even a beat. Like, and I love that. Like, of all the kills, I think that is the one that like kind of shocks me the most because it just is out. Like, we knew there was tension, but he just is just like, oh, and another thing about the weather today. Like, it's just, oh.
Blah, blah.
Jackson didn't deserve that.
He certainly didn't. Also, there not only is the man in the basement. Look, see, this is the thing. Not only is the man in the basement possibly what he was referring to with the Bohemian, but much like the car, there was another Bohemian that enticed his wife long ago in Pearl.
Mm-hmm.
So, a lot of echoes of Pearl without even knowing it. I guess Pearls are echoes of this. It's, cyclical. Time is crazy.
Yeah, it's like, who even knows? Like, what?
Yeah,
huh?
That's right. Exactly. Who even knows what, huh?
I'm glad you got it.
Maxine is starting to stir from the touching and freaks out when she finds Pearl in bed with her. Pearl running out is honestly so funny. She's like doing a little old lady shuffle out of there.
Again, this movie is very funny, but not in like punchliney ways. And also, Mia Goth, this is like she absolutely owned being Pearl.
Yeah, definitely. Bobby Lynn wakes up from the screams, and Lorraine goes major shining mode with an axe that she finds to break through a door panel and unlock it, or at least starts to, until Harold reappears, smashing her fingies.
It's so upsetting. It's so upsetting.
They don't look good.
Jenna Ortega to make it like, what if there were two final girls? The ultimate and penultimate girl.
Wow. If only.
Mm-hmm.
Harold pumps the TV to cover her screams. This is the televangelism we saw earlier. The preacher says kidnappers, murderers, sex fiends lurking where we least expect. The elderly? They are the kidnappers, murderers, sex fiends?
Democrats, lesbians, werewolves.
That's right. They're all in the house too. Maxine does a ton of coke to calm down.
That's how coke works.
Oh, right. I forgot. That's how coke works, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So that works. And Bobby Lynn calls out for the others. She finds Pearl at the end of the dock and covers her up with a blanket. But Pearl slaps the fuck out of her. I don't need a nurse. Why should you have it all? You don't deserve to be able to just flaunt it in my face like you. And that's the crucial line, that these repressive types have main character syndrome and always feel like it's about how things interact with them. That your being attractive is an infringement on my being pure. And that, I'm sorry to say, to a lot of people out there, is just not the way that it fucking goes. Like, so many people make such a thing out of controlling everybody else and what they do. And like, truly, like, I'm just like, who cares? Like, let people do their own thing and I'll do my thing, and everybody just fucking chills and does their own thing. Like, why does it have to be such an infringement on everybody? It's very frustrating.
No, jokes aside, I think you're very spot on with that, and not something that I had considered in my analysis of this. Like, it very much mirrors some real world things where, like, exactly as you're saying, like, you need to stop with this main character syndrome. You are not, other people finding joy and happiness is in no way, shape, or form impacting your ability to find a joy and happiness. And yet you are lashing out at those people. You are literally terrorizing and in some cases murderizing them.
Yeah, that's right. And Bobby says, it's not my fault you didn't live the life you wanted. And I think that that's a great response, but Pearl doesn't want to hear it, shoves her in the water to be devoured by the gator with a simple bitch while Harold walks up.
A simple yet well-delivered bitch.
Certainly. No, I did not mean to denigrate her line there.
Not since Alien not Covenant. What's the new one?
Romulus.
Thank you. Not since Romulus have I seen someone deliver the line bitch with so much authority.
Wow.
You know, that scene in Romulus where he calls the alien a bitch. Right. And
the very well-deserved and not out of place scene.
and out of nowhere, this original line when he calls the alien a bitch. And it's
truly
iconic.
My theater for that erupted in applause, and I cringed so fucking hard.
I'm sorry, buddy.
Applauding this, right?
I would have been there to hold your hand and be like, I wasn't catered to. I was offended.
I was offended. And I was also offended by the deep fake, but I also will say that once that egg opens, basically all my problems went out the window.
There were so many face huggers.
Like, the first 2/3 of the movie is like good. Like, I like it. I think it's fun. There's a lot of good stuff in it. But then once the like spoilers for Alien Romulus. I'm going to talk about the ending of this movie now. So.
Which is why you're listening to this right now. Is to hear our hot takes on Alien Romulus.
Right. So I'm going to give us a 1 minute timeline. Jump forward 1 minute from now if you don't want spoilers. All right. When the engineer gets transformed into the alien and it becomes this weird hybrid thing, that thing smiling, I was filled with such delight. It's so horrific, so disgusting. It's so villainous looking. I was like, this is amazing. I love everything about this engineer hybrid. It's just delightful.
Just to give my little piece too, I think one of my favorite moments in that movie was when they close the door because there's more face huggers than we've ever experienced at once at a time. And then the face huggers all like hands, like 15 of them start pulling the doors open.
Hell yeah.
That fucking scared the shit out of me.
It was good. Fun movie. I gotta say, fun movie. They made some fuck ups, some things I didn't like, but by and large, pretty good.
When your first two movies in a franchise are considered two of the greatest movies of all time, it's tough to follow up that act.
It's
tough.
Like,
you're gonna make some mistakes. Still fun.
Still fun. All right. Back to X.
Oh yeah, X.
That's right. Maxine sees them returning from the pond to get her and quickly hides. Meanwhile, Pearl mutters the same line about sick and tired of never getting what I want that Maxine said at the very beginning. Just another piece of evidence that this is a cyclical deal, the disappointments of life despite beauty.
Like a record, baby.
That's right. The record we saw earlier during the stutter scene. Stutter transition, not a scene. Harold reassures her of her specialness and beauty and says he wants to give her what she wants. She wants more, though. Make me feel young again. And they have sex on the bed while Maxine cowers below them.
The music in that scene gets really intense and suspenseful in a way that I felt was, I don't know that it delivered because the sex is, it's not that it's funny, but it is not like, I wasn't scared for her.
I think this is the thing, is there is an absurd humor to the situation that she has found herself in. And I think that the music plays into that. It is very bizarre what's happening here. The fact that they just keep scanning back and forth between like this old couple all decked out in prosthetics up there, and then Mia Goth.
Oh yeah. And another thing to celebrate Ty West for, we got a lot of dude, dick, and butt. And I wasn't angry at it. You know?
There you go. Prosthetic or otherwise.
To be proven by Kid Cudi.
Yeah, that's right. TBD. To be determined. She manages to crawl out and runs for the van, but the tire has a screwdriver in it. So she grabs the pistol from the dash and here's Lorraine, so goes to find her. Very funny that she's like going very slow into the house when she just left them elsewhere. Like she knows that they were in the boarding house and she's still like, all right, I'm gonna go in pretty slow here. But I guess she's nervous because of the TV. So who knows?
I did like they did the stutter thing again in this scene where you see her escaping from the bedroom and it cuts to the car and then it's back to the bedroom and her coming out from under the bed and then back to the car and you see her coming up. It's fun transitions like that, like keeping the action moving without having to show us every bit in between.
Definitely. So funny also when Lorraine is screaming and Maxine says, keep your voice down. And she's like, don't fucking tell me to keep my voice down.
Yes.
I've been trapped in a dungeon. These old people are fucking crazy.
This is the scene that cements that Lorraine is the best character in the movie. She's absolutely right. Fuck you guys. I fucking hate you guys. I never should have listened to you guys. And
when she rejects Maxine and she's like, it's your fault and I hate you. God, it's funny.
It's really funny. And then she gets away.
Yeah. Oh no, JP, I think you might have missed something.
Oh, I paused it and then we had to record, so I didn't.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll refresh you then, because she runs out only to be absolutely blown the fuck away by a hidden Harold.
It's so good.
I told her to stay in the cellar.
It reminds me of Samuel L. Jackson dying in Deep Blue Sea. Like it is not at all what you expect in that moment. It's so well done.
That's right. Pearl says that they don't need Maxine to be a sex slave anymore because she has Harold again. And so they're looking for Maxine to murder in quote unquote self-defense since she's in the house. The problem is she doesn't have Harold again for very long because as he drags Lorraine out, she is apparently not quite dead, or maybe just the dragging does it, some weird gravity, but she gurgles and it scares the fuck out of him and he has a heart attack. The old ticker took a licking through this movie, but that was simply too much.
I mean, he made it through the sex. Like,
Yeah.
you'd think he could do anything.
Nope, not get scared by a gurgle.
I think there's an argument that Pearl killed him by forcing him to have sex.
Wow. Much to consider. Much to consider. Well, now, here we all are together at the crossroads of salvation and damnation, says the preacher on TV as Maxine approaches Pearl, gun drawn and demanding the keys to the truck. This is something I haven't really commented on, even though I have mentioned the TV talking. It's fun that it like is commenting on the scenes as they happen. I like this stuff. It's not
really well
it's
done.
not overdone. It's used kind of sparingly throughout the movie, which I think helps it to not feel too over the top, even in a very over the top movie. But it is like a cool little bit of like thematic narration almost.
Oh, it is, and but simultaneously, like, it exists on its own as evangelical parable. Like it's not so on the nose that you necessarily are even going to notice it, but when you do, it's like, oh, hello.
Yeah,
This
for
is
sure.
almost like a chorus. Like, this is narrating what's going on in the scene.
Definitely. And that becomes it, like, butts up against reality almost in this really interesting way in the next scene where Pearl muses, "We're not so different, you and I." this sets Maxine off. She says, "I'm nothing like you. I'm a star. I will not accept a life I do not deserve." And this is said in unison with the preacher. And it like really like, whoa, takes you aback because it's the first time that the reality of the movie and this television set, which has been clearly commenting on the movie the whole time, have intersected in a direct way. And it is really surreal and disorienting. It's such a really powerful moment in this movie. And also, it sets you off wondering, like, what does this mean for her? Did she come from a conservative upbringing where this preacher was on and her current life is a reaction to that? Like, what does this say about the character? All of this delivered in this one line, just being in unison with this other thing, is just really like incredible filmmaking.
Well, and without going further down the road yet,
Right.
It creates this. It cements the idea that everything that Maxine and the others have been fighting against are these institutional oppressors.
Mm-hmm.
And like, it really cements that like, especially with it being in Texas and with the Christian imagery for Lorraine, like, it's very much pointing out, like, this is very real. This isn't just a voice on the TV. This is something that they're experiencing by making the choices they're making in life. This is the oppression that they've been. Yeah, it's so it brings that point home so perfectly in that moment.
For sure. Pearl staring at Maxine freaks her out, and she pulls the trigger. Pearl's the trigger. But the pistol is actually unloaded, just like the shotgun at the very start. But
how would we know?
If only someone had said this earlier. But we've seen that the shotgun is loaded now. And so there's a reversal that has happened. And now Pearl dives for it, shoots at Maxine, and misses, getting blown out the front door by the recoil. It is absolutely hilarious. It is such a fun payoff for all the she might fall and break her hip. While the preacher,
the fucking stunt work on it too,
very fun. Yeah,
it's so funny. She ragdolls so perfectly. It's so awesome.
It's great. The preacher gleefully declares to be what he calls divine intervention. Maxine staggers out, and leaves the dying Pearl to crawl and scream after her. It'll all be taken from you, just like it was from me. And that is too much for Maxine, and she reverses at speed to drive over Pearl's head and crush it.
Much like the cow guts crushed under the wheel
That's
earlier.
exactly right.
And also so satisfying. It's so satisfying. The vengeance kill. Like,
Mhm.
I like it. I like it. I like when they do it in movies. I don't agree with it in real life, but maybe. But it's so satisfying for the character who you're rooting for her. Like at its heart, this is still a movie where we have a hero, and we have to question our own beliefs when it comes to Maxine and whether we approve of her morality, but we're rooting for her by the end. We are
Definitely.
fucking totally on board, and fuck this old lady, run over her head.
That's right. And she takes a bump while driving and says, "Praise the fucking Lord." And she's driving off into the sunrise. And the preacher has the final say, revealing that she wasn't raised in a home where they watched the preacher, but that the preacher is her father, using her image and downfall to proselytize.
And I didn't want to say it earlier because I didn't want to spoil anything.
Right.
But in one of the first scenes with the preacher, he actually says, "I had a daughter, and she was taken up by these sinful things."
Devil.
And
Yeah.
I like it. I like it. It's not necessary for the broader points of the movie, but I think it's necessary for not only the character. It gives one more sense of depth for the character, but it also sets up the idea of where is this character going next, because she is haunted by not only the mass murder events, but also like the traumatizing upraising that she had.
Right. She has no home to return to. So now that she has this, what's next for Maxine? Presumably Hollywood.
Probably porn. I guess porn.
Maybe. Maybe. I guess that's maybe on the table. I don't know. Maybe. We're back with the sheriff the next day, and a cop brings him the camera they found in the boarding house. "What do you think is on it?" they ask. And the sheriff says, "From the look of things, I'd say one goddamn fucked up horror picture. Boom! X title card. Credits."
Fucking love that. I love the title card doing it in like a 70s way. Like with the fucking Roman numerals at the bottom, and like it just hey, we haven't gotten there yet, so I'll wait until you ask me why is this the best movie ever.
Well, luckily, JP, we're now at the part of the episode where we sum up why this isn't just a good horror movie, but is in fact the best horror movie ever made. And I'm going to let you start.
Oof.
Long wait. I'm sorry to have to hold you so long before we
Yeah,
get this
I'm
far.
glad I held this. The thing about this movie, I think that the hype, both positive and negative, about this movie, the criticisms of Ty West that are not about him as a director, but him as like kind of whether or not he is capitalizing, exploiting, and generally like out to make a buck, not to make a movie. And there's a lot of discussion about that. And people think that maybe he is overblown or overrated. This movie is trying to do so many things. And I brought up pastiche earlier, and I do think this movie is a pastiche. I also think it's its own thing. I think that the references are deliberate. I think that the cinematography, it's gorgeously shot. It's a luscious movie. The use of color, the acting. But for me, it's about that this is a movie that, much like all of my favorite horror movies, is saying something about the current state of affairs. It's saying something about the world. And I don't know that it necessarily hits on all fronts, but I've only seen it twice, and I plan on watching it like a dozen times more. Because I think that upon rewatching, I realized that everything feels deliberate. And I think that what is being said in this movie is actually really important. and it's culturally different. And that's what marks it, because whether it's movies that he's mimicking that are about the 70s or movies that he's aping that are from the 70s, he's really pointing out that this type of culture that we saw in the 70s, this striving for art, and even when there were people who pretended to strive for the art, like the cameraman, and ultimately, or Jenna Ortega's character, who ultimately decided that, like, actually I hate you and I hate this, that the people who actually like did this because they loved the art, they made something beautiful. And even if they didn't live to see that success, whether they got murdered by an old lady or just that it took, 30, 40 years for the culture to catch up, what they were doing was so important. And it was because there were people out there trying so hard to make something new and make something that was art, that, that ideas bodily independence for women, sexual freedom. We didn't even address the fact that, Kid Cudi is a black man. This is a black man who is doing this thing that he loves and is trying to create art. And him being black is really, it's a roadblock to him, in the same way that a woman being promiscuous, or honestly just a woman being free with her body and her sexuality, is a roadblock and a detriment. And the people that went out and did these things created where we are now. And I think that ultimately that's what I see in this movie. Is it's a love letter to the hard work of people who were trying to express something new, something progressive, and it didn't always work, and they didn't always succeed, and sometimes they got killed by an old lady. But in the end, what they did was so important and brought us to where we are. And then at the end of the day, it's also a great fucking slasher flick. Like, I think this is perhaps the best horror movie of all time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, to me, this is the best horror movie ever made, because when I was finishing my notes and I was thinking to myself, George, what makes this the best horror movie ever made? And one thing that really stuck out to me is it really feels like a interesting example of postmodernism. And in that way, it is perhaps the most of our time movie that not only exists, but could only exist in this moment. It could only happen by leveraging the entirety of film history, the history of adult filmmaking, the history of horror filmmaking, the history of exploitation movies in general. And when I went to go double check that, because I was like, George, maybe you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, and let's just double check what postmodernism even means before we bring this up on the podcast. And let me tell you, folks, boy, does this hit the marks, because
100%.
the three hallmarks are: first, extensive use of homage or pastiche, which JP covered quite thoroughly there. We've also been talking about all the various reference points. People talk about movies. There is intertextuality that happens in this movie. Then on top of that, the next hallmark is self-reflexive as well as intertextual, that it calls attention to the fact that it is a movie, which the incredibly flashy, expressionistic movements, camera choices, ratios, all of these things, the stutter transitions, all these things really let you know that it is a movie that you're watching. The fact that they are making a movie is itself a reference to it. So it is certainly self-referential. And then the third, and perhaps most germane to our conversation here, characteristic is the bridging of the gap between highbrow and lowbrow activities and artistic styles. And that, like Ty himself said, that was his goal from the word go, was how can I do something highbrow with lowbrow exploitation? And I think in that way, this really is like the example of postmodernism and what it can do and how it can be used to do something more than just tell a narrative story, how we can then use it to apply to our real lives in a more direct way, how we can see all of these themes and say, what is this saying about the world we live in, even though it is about 1979? It is just such a fascinating use case of film and example of like where we are in 2022 or 2024, as it may be. And it just is, it's fascinating. It really is. Yeah, like I said, could only exist right now and only by using the entirety of the history of film. It's incredible. It's the best horror movie ever made.
Well said, sir.
Thank you. Also, I also forgot to mention that the fucking performances are through the roof. They're all great. Great stuff.
Also, I think we both neglected to say it, but there's a lot of boobs and dicks and butts in this movie.
That's true.
So that's
I'm not complaining. I'm definitely not complaining. JP, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been a blast. Like I said, the last solo guest, so I'm really thrilled that it gets to be you, my friend.
You're so kind. This was so much fun, George. I am gonna miss listening to you talk about movies. I'm gonna miss talking to you about movies while we record it. But I hope that you and I will continue to talk about this thing that, I think your love of the genre is matched by your depth of knowledge, your education, and the work that you have put into this and every other movie you've covered. And it has really been an honor to do episodes with you. I think you do amazing, amazing things, and I can't wait to see what you bring that into next.
Well, thank you very much. It has, of course, been a pleasure for me as well. But yeah, let's get into plugs. Anything that you want to shout out? Anything you want to direct people towards?
No, I these days I think I just want to direct people towards get out there, register to vote, look into community need and assistance programs. Make sure that you are out there doing what you can to help your fellow people, and just be careful of old people.
X to the polls. That will surely be as effective as Pokemon Go to the polls.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, yeah. Well, certainly I endorse that as well. People should get out there and vote, and I'll even say it: vote Democrat. All right, let's fucking do this, people.
Yeah. Stop fucking around, guys.
Even if you, maybe I'll delete this part, but even if you have to hold your nose like I'm going to be doing, just fucking do it.
I'm with you on that. But holding my nose is better than moving to another country.
Right. So, yeah. So as far as my plugs, like I said, this is basically the end of the show. So, not a ton to plug here at the end, but go back and listen to the back catalog while it's up. Come see the show. Yeah. The final live show will be happening on October 20th at 7 p.m. It will be free to enter. If you want to help throw a couple bucks to help cover the cost of renting the venue out, certainly I will not deny you. But free entry. We're going to be talking about the movies that I am most surprised did not get picked for the podcast. And then I will be having rotating guests up to do mini episodes about the movies that I most wish had been picked for the podcast. Sure to be a good time. And
that sounds awesome.
Yeah, I have been rewatching the movies for that section and being like, fuck, I made some good picks here.
Yeah, this is the I like you're going to announce it like, okay, and now we're going to do everyone's an idiot and here's why I'm the smartest.
Yeah, you all fucked up. Here's the movies you missed. There is even a section that I think that this is one that's getting cut just for time, but there was a section that I was going to do that was going to be called like arguably a horror movie. It was going to be like
Long Legs on there.
That's just straight up a horror movie as far as I'm concerned. It was going to be like Jurassic Park or like The Matrix. And it was, so like truly like would have to put up an argument about why this is a horror movie, but I think that they are. And I think that The Matrix in particular, I was like, God, I want to fucking talk about The Matrix, but none of the guests picked The Matrix. So
Fucking idiots. 5 years of
twice
idiots.
over.
This is why George is leaving the show, guys,
That's right.
because you were all disappointing.
I hate to say it, but that is exactly true. Thanks for saying it for me, JP. So yeah, check that out. That'll be October 20th. Enjoy the show while it's up. Don't forget also that after the show ends, the Patreon episodes will be making their way to the main feed. So don't just immediately unsubscribe as soon as the final episode drops, because there will
If you unsubscribe, I will be coming for you.
Oh my gosh. Well, he's right to do it. So
yeah,
I got shooters on the corner, folks. You don't want to fucking mess with the horror house. So, all right, we're getting loopy here. It's time to go. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Smooches.